Seems fair to me. Well, if you don't know what fair is, you can't make it.
Donnybrook is made possible by the support of the Betsy and Thomas Patterson Foundation and the members of 9PBS.
Well, thank you very much for joining us for this edition of Donnybrook. Yes, we are separated once again, but we'll find out who gets the Iron Man Award for showing up to the studio on this really wet Thursday. Let's meet our panelists, starting with Wendy Wiese from the Jennifer and Wendy Show on the Big 550 KTRS. Mr. Bill McClellan joining us from STLtoday.com and your St. Louis Post-Dispatch. Ray Hartmann from KTRS, rawstory.com, and the Riverfront Times. And there he is, high and drying in the studio, Alvin Reid. He made it to 3655 Olive Street. He gets our Iron Man Award for this edition.
Unlike an unnamed senator, I ran to work instead of.
All the topics we'll talk about. Oh, by the way,
very good. Very good.
I do want to mention that Joyce Casey has been providing the closed captioning on this broadcast for 10 years. And as it turns out, this is her last broadcast. So if you've been following this program through the closed caption, let me just say, we all owe a debt of gratitude to Joyce and her great work, and we wish her the best in retirement. All right, to the topics we go. Tuesday is primary day in Missouri, Bill, and on the Democratic side, at least according to one poll, Trudy Busch, the nurse, is ahead of the veteran and lawyer, Mr. Lucas Kunce, and by about 4 or so points. What are you thinking as the mayor of St. Louis, Tishaura Jones, actually came out and endorsed Trudy Busch this week?
Well, I'm a little baffled by the whole thing. I mean, I met Trudy Busch Valentine at a reception, a off-the-record reception, and she seems like a very nice person. But this is a U.S. Senate race, and she hasn't had much of a campaign. And the only thing I can figure is that she must have consultants who've looked into this thing and said, hey, people have a great feeling, vibration for the old brewery, and they love Gussie Busch, and everybody admires nurses. So let's just go with that. There's really no reason to campaign. And it doesn't make much sense to me, but according to the polls that you sent me, she's ahead.
Yeah, I met Lucas Kunce about a year ago, and I think I wrote the first stuff about him, and I was really captivated by the fact that he was a different kind of Democrat, that he spoke American, he spoke Missourian, he was from outstate, had a great resume, and could connect to outstate Missouri. I still feel that way, and I still think he is the only Democrat that has a chance to break through. Otherwise, it's the Democrats just doing what they do, which is, preach to their own choir. They'll end up getting what they usually get, which is their 42% or whatever. Now, with Trudy Busch, now I will say this.
All right.
Well, let me interrupt Ray for just a second on that.
Yeah.
Trudy Busch is not your normal Democratic candidate, Ray. I mean, first of all, her big thing is she's a nurse, and second of all, she's not woke at all. I mean, like Tishaura Jones endorsing her surprised me. I mean, Trudy Busch is going just on straight values, and I'm a good person, and I'll do the right thing. She's really not your typical Democrat.
And bringing compassion back to the U.S. Senate, a lot of people would vote for a floor lamp who was going to bring compassion back to the U.S. Senate. And I think that she is impressing people with a kind heart, a genuine desire to do good. And I think if what I'm picking up on social media is any indication, Lucas Kunce went way over the top when it came to the whole, veiled prophet. The only people who were involved in veiled prophet are racist and slave owners. I mean, it was really out there. The only people at veiled prophet are incredibly wealthy people, and you can't paint with that broad a brush. And I know a lot of progressives who have connections to the veiled prophet through their families who were very offended by that tactic that his campaign took.
I'm just going to say that I didn't think she really had a chance when she got into the race. I've since been obviously proven wrong. And so, like, how can I sit here and say, like, she has no chance to win if she wins on Tuesday?
I think she's going to win.
I think
we'll
she
see.
win. I think
Let's go to you, Wendy, on the Republican side. Of the latest poll out of Emerson College now has Eric Schmidt, the Attorney General for Missouri, in the lead ahead of Congresswoman Vicky Hartzler and former Governor Eric Greitens. Your thoughts on this one?
Well, Vicky Hartzler has been thrown under the Trump bus, as we discussed a couple of weeks ago. President Trump made it clear that she wasn't up to snuff. I think that probably endears her to a lot of people. I've been saying since the beginning that Eric Schmidt was going to be the nominee, and I believe that's going to happen. Eric Greitens, I think you guys talked about it while I was off one week, but once you make the allegations about children, it's over. It's over. And I don't know if he'll come back again, but I would bet a lot of money that he will not be the nominee after the primary on Tuesday.
I think, I'm sorry. Well, I was just going to say it obviously looks like Schmidt's got the momentum and going in the right direction. I think we all need to be careful about polls just because of what just everybody's experiencing. I think the only factor that we don't know, and I don't know anybody could possibly support, is Donald Trump. If he does an endorsement, and it would not be the latest one he does if he does it this weekend, I think in a Missouri Republican primary, it will make the difference for Eric Greitens if he gets Trump's endorsement. I'm not predicting it, but I don't think you can rule it out.
Well, Trump, said what he had to say about Hartzler. Maybe they took her out, maybe he didn't. But I do think that this is a case where no matter what I think of Eric Schmidt, I think you have a lot of Republicans through the state like, listen, we have to nominate somebody. And if Hartzler,
it can't be Greitens.
It can't be Greitens, and it can't be McCluskey, and it can't be Huey Long or whatever his name is out there in Southeast.
Billy Long.
Billy Long. Yeah.
So,
all right. Hey, Alvin,
can I say one other thing?
No, let's move on.
Real quick, I just got to say one thing. John Wood. It'll be interesting to see if it is Schmidt, if John Wood stays in the race.
Okay, Alvin Reid, I want to ask you about Cori Busch, the incumbent congressperson, first-term Democrat, who is now up against Stephen Roberts, the General Assembly lawmaker. She gets a lot of attention. Members of the squad were here last week stumping for her. Can Roberts defeat Cori Busch?
No, I think her base is solid enough that she'll be okay. I think also that just, we ran a Missouri Independent story on the race, and Rasheen Aldridge had some pretty good quotes, basically not saying I agree or disagree with him, but he was just saying that I know both and I like both. But what went on during this campaign, he just thought was just kind of low. And I think that throughout the first congressional district, it will be enough that I think Bush carries it. And I think well, I won't say it won't be close, but I think she'll win. I do think she'll win.
Well, I think that she's definitely the favorite. I think that her supporters are very fervent. I'm on the other side. I'm rooting for Steve Roberts.
And can I say something real quick, Charlie? Now, I know it's the political season, but boy, that torrential rain hit and folks is flooded and getting boated out of their house and everything. And it was almost instantly, Cori Busch was saying we need to declare a federal disaster. And then the mayor came in like right at the same time, and they were like on it. And I thought of the movie The Candidate with Robert Redford in it, and the guy Crocker Jarman, and there was some wildfire, and he got out there with some bill just talking. I'm just like, man, if I was running against an incumbent, I would have been out there neck deep in water. And I said like missed opportunity. And I think there were a lot of missed opportunities. So I'm sorry, I didn't mean to apologize.
And I know that Stephen Roberts is a family friend, Bill, and I take nothing away from that closeness, obviously. But from a political standpoint, I think, Alvin, you're right. It has to be a fire, something that you feel very strongly. And I've never had that sense from Stephen Roberts. He seems like something of a reluctant candidate. And on the other hand, you've got Cori Busch, who buries the needle. So I'm pretty sure she'll be fine.
Well, Ray Hartmann, in St. Louis County, the county executive, Sam Page, is facing opposition from Jane Dueker. This, of course, is next Tuesday's Democratic primary for county executive. What are you seeing in this one?
I think Jane Dueker is going to pull an upset. I think she's Sam Page has, well, first of all, it's a low turnout election. In low turnout elections, the folks who are unhappy are more likely to dominate. The other fact is, I know I had Tim Fitch on my show, who's a Republican who is voted for Jane Dueker and is urging other Republicans to do that. And it's perfectly, if you have to take it one party or another, but I think a lot of Republicans that are so turned off by the Senate race anyway, would be more likely in this year to vote closer to home. And so I think she's going to pull an upset.
Well, that's a bold prediction.
Should, by the way. But,
yeah, but bold prediction. I don't think so. And I also think that Republicans are energized by their senatorial campaign. And I don't know if they would switch to Democrats just to do a protest vote against Page.
I don't think St. Louis Republicans are at all, because they're more likely to be normal Republicans who are more like John Wood than they are.
They would want to go for Eric Schmidt over
the old Eric Schmidt, maybe, but not this frothing like MAGA Eric
As
Schmidt.
I said, we compared to Greitens and McCloskey and all, that crew, then you just have to just go with it. And then I think Jane Dueker's percentage of votes, in North County will be just 1%. That's hard to get over. I mean,
so.
Okay.
All
Well,
right.
Alvin, let me ask you about Senator Josh Hawley. As you know, we were preempted last week here on 9 PBS as PBS carried the January 6th Congressional Committee hearing. And turns out that one of their, maybe the most famous video they released was of our own junior senator from the state of Missouri, Josh Hawley, running away from the rioters. Obviously, he was trying to get some exercise on January the 6th. Let me ask you, if you were in that Capitol, as much fun as we make about Josh Hawley, wouldn't you be running for your safety as well?
All right. One, I would remember that, Alvin, you were Mr. Bravado. So I would have walked briskly. I wouldn't have been in full sprint. And I'm glad my, 85-year-old mother was not on the escalator, because he would have just shoved her out of the way to try to get out of that building. Hey, you lit a fire, all right, and then you ran away from it. Literally ran away from it. And he's Mr. Manly Man. So, no, I mean, I'm not saying I would have not left, okay? I would have left in orderly fashion. He ran, and that really shows what kind of man he is. It really does. I don't want to get into stereotypical stuff, but oh my gosh, you ran. I mean, you ran. So
well, and there was something about the backdrop of the security that were around him or in the hallway or the Capitol Police, whoever they were. I kept reading about one of the Capitol Police officers who said that, Hawley did the fist from inside the secure area.
right.
And so these police officers knew that trouble was coming, but they weren't panicking. But you have the senator who incited them running. And I'm not sure how he survives this politically. He's faced a lot of things before. I don't see how he survives this politically.
Well, I think it was just one of those feet don't fail me now moments.
Well, yeah.
And off he went. And I think a lot of people can say, I mean, I don't like Josh Hawley, but I was amused by it, but I don't really hold it against him.
I think he hit a level that very few people have ever hit in politics for being laughable and pathetic. And that's very different from being defiant. With a closed fist, I thought a year ago that he was done. We had our show the day after the insurrection. I think I said on the show, you can't come back from the closed fist. Well, you can, because it turned out, unlike that day, that the entire Republican Party fell into line, which saved him on that point. But I tell you what, he's in the pop culture as a punchline.
Well, how about
I don't think so.
His book is just coming out about manly men.
Well, that's true.
It's like Saturday Night Live.
Here's the
Timing
thing.
is everything.
I think that his supporters never even see him running, because the media they follow are not going to be showing it. Certainly not again and again. And, let's face it, to be honest, there's a lot of these moments and they come and go really quickly. One of them, I think, is when President Joe Biden recently gave a fist bump to the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia. Now, of course, if you're watching Fox News, that was repeated again and again and again. Probably not so much on certain networks like MSNBC. I'm just guessing. I don't know. But these things, they come, they go. They're kind of, they're good for the moment, but they're not lasting.
I think it is presidentially. I guess Missouri, I'm not saying he couldn't win a Senate race again. He might be able to, but I think he's done.
Well, let me ask, okay, Bill McClellan, what about Lisa Clancy, a member of the St. Louis County Council, who, as it turns out, was doing some paperwork and writing for the pot industry, the marijuana industry, got about $5,000 in payment before she stopped, but she also voted on matters that affected the industry that she was getting money from. Is she in hot water?
Well, perhaps she should be, but I don't think she is. I think it's a solid Democratic district. It's the one I'm in. And she doesn't have any opposition in the primary. And that surprised me because, I wasn't really upset about the pot thing. But when she gave up oversight for Sam Page, it wasn't what I expected from a strong young woman to say, oh, well, let Sam do it. And I thought somebody's going to challenge her. And they didn't. So the pot thing doesn't really bother me so much.
I have issues with her as a councilwoman, frankly, because, and I think they're reflected in the schism between her and Shalonda Webb and Rita Hurd Days, who I think have handled themselves much better. I will say this, Lisa Clancy's problem here wasn't that she was the consultant. It was an issue of disclosure. In other words, I don't think she had a huge conflict, but there was a disclosure problem. And she's in no trouble politically, though. I don't.
And then when Joe Holloman calls from the Post-Dispatch, talk to him. Don't ignore the phone calls.
Amen. Joe did a fine job on it.
Yep.
And for a city council person to refuse to talk even on the phone.
Yeah.
And then
right.
How about in
Well,
person?
I think she should have returned the money or recused herself. But to her credit, she did stop working for the pot industry when either she was told to by the county executive or she thought better of it. Sometimes people do things that they later realize don't make any sense. But when it came to that vote, I think that she should.
But not leaders, not leaders, Charlie.
Yeah, that's at least the path I'm not giving her.
Maybe that's today's leader.
Whatever she did that I may or may not disagree with, I could say that, all right, now maybe you did that for political expediency. Maybe you did that to help Sam Page. Maybe you did that to help, how you make your votes and what stands you make. Okay. I think that's politics. But this is, being ignorant of the fact, and I don't think you can be that ignorant of, this is an obvious conflict of interest. And if you have to oh, maybe that was wrong, I'm not buying that. I always lean to, you knew that was wrong, and the problem came when you got busted on it. So this one, that sticks more with me than any other thing she's done that you guys may disagree with.
Maybe so, but I do believe that people do stupid things. Ray, I want to ask you about a column you wrote this week.
Thank you.
No. We're changing subjects here.
Speaking of stupid things, let's go to Ray. Yeah.
I want to direct everybody to this week's Riverfront Times, where Ray Hartmann talks about that $510 million that nobody else seems to be reporting on these days. In December, Stan Kroenke wrote a check to 3 governmental bodies around here for more than $500 million. And there's been like no discussion, to our eternal disgrace. 7 months later, finally, Ray, you're taking a look at it. You're saying that money should go to mental health counseling.
As an example, not the, I made it clear, there's a statutory requirement for the RSA and a need to do some spending on the dome. I mean, that may not be exciting or sexy. It's what it has to do. It's what it's there for. I just threw out an idea because I think it's important to think in the community for people to actually have specifics. I happen to think that it is disgraceful that we have so few 24/7 health facilities for people, and particularly nowhere for people in mental health crisis. It's so easy to talk about the suicide crisis, which we have. So easy. Every time there's a shooting, they talk about, we need to do something about mental health. I think this is the kind of thing that I'm not talking about one on every block, a small but available a network of mental health facilities would not be a large capital investment, but we have plenty of money to really stake it out and do a good job and actually do something about the mental health crisis. It would just be one of the things. Obviously, the city and county are going to get a significant share to do other things, but I think it should be used for stuff that we can agree on, that's outside of the normal workings of government as we know them.
I agree with that concept. On the mental health, I think you run into that thing where, back in the day, if you were concerned about somebody, you could have them picked up, and you can't do that anymore. So you can have a 24/7 facility, but somebody has to go check into it. You can't just grab people and put them in there, even though they may need to be there. So
it was a brilliantly written column, Ray. I mean, it really was, but that was sort of my thought, is that's half the battle, is getting somebody to cross the threshold of the facility if there isn't a crisis. And if you could continue the really intense conversation that we're having, I think all across the media, social and traditional, then that would certainly help.
Well, Ray, I enjoyed the column, but like you, I think you brought this up. There's a mental health counselor shortage. So even if we put hundreds of millions of dollars into mental health, I don't know if we'd find enough counselors, at least not in the near term.
Part of the idea was to spend money in cooperation with our universities. And all I could say is, let's see other people come forward with something specific.
Hey, maybe we need some larger sewers with weather like we're having right now. Bill, I want to ask you about $1 billion program. It could be many billions of dollars, because our friends and family in the West, in Southern California and Nevada, they have no water. The Colorado River's drying up. Some have suggested that we divert parts of the Missouri or Mississippi rivers to the West. Do you feel like sharing the abundance of water that we have here?
No, I don't. And I used to live in Phoenix. Now, as a non-science person, someone who doesn't understand anything, it just seems to me they talk about desalinization, taking salt water. And I thought to myself, well, we have two big problems. We're running out of water in the middle of the country, and Los Angeles and New York are about to be submerged. Why don't we take that excess water from the oceans, desalinize it, and use that instead of diverting Missouri and Mississippi?
Takes a lot of energy.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I would. Can we charge for the water? I mean, they can have the water if they pay all of our water bills. I think that's a fair trade.
Well, they'll drain us, Alvin. They need water so badly in Arizona.
Oh, I'm talking about
moving there.
I'm not talking about St. Louis on Tuesday. I'm thinking about some drips and drabs, like
Tuesday or today.
I just like watching the wheels of McClellan Reid.
Oh yeah,
the consulting firm.
How they
water
approach these.
We could charge.
We got $1 million effort there, Ray, and we're not charging you anything.
I like
Wendy Wiese. Cardinals played 2 games in Toronto this week. They split them, but turns out 2 of their stars, actually 3 players and 2 of their stars, Arenado and Goldschmidt, were not there because Canada says you have to be vaccinated to get into the country. These 2 players are not vaccinated. So they sat out the series. Do you think that's their right to do that? And that's all fine and good?
And you're coming to me because I'm the sports authority on the panel, and I understand that. I was surprised by the people who did not have a problem with it. The number of people that didn't have a problem with it. Obviously, there's also a lot of grousing, but when I was reading the comments in the post, I was just stunned because 20 years ago, that would not have worked during Whitey Ball or Tony Ball or anything else.
People are arguing about the vaccination. That's not it.
Right.
You abandoned your teammates. I don't want to hear, I want to win the championship at all costs. The next time a teammate has got to get arthroscopic surgery and he's back out there in like 6 weeks because he wants to help his team win, I'd probably say, just go sit someplace else, okay? Because you decided you wanted to do what you wanted to do. You chose not to play. You chose not to play 2 games. Inexcusable. If I owned the team, I would always look at them like, nope, not money guys, not money players.
I agree with Alvin.
I'd
add one other thing real quick, and that is, first of all, of course, it's in their right. They can do it. There's no rights issue here. But I would say this, that please don't refer to them as role models after this. I guess they have a right not to have their kids vaccinated for the basic vaccines too. It's just, let's not glorify them and let excuse me, but go ahead.
Okay, I was just saying, I liked Ben Hockman's column on it very much. The only head scratcher to me was when, and I don't care if the people get vaccinated or not. I have friends who didn't do it, fine. But when Paul Goldschmidt said that he spent the last year and a half talking to every doctor, medical authority, and I thought, and made the decision, I thought, no, you didn't. I mean, there is a consensus that A, the vaccine is safe, and that B, it's relatively successful. And you just don't tell me that you've talked to as many medical professionals as you could. And if you want to say, I just don't want to put anything like that in my body, cool, but don't pretend like you sought out.
And that'll have to be the last word, because we are flat out of time. Thank you. Don't forget, everybody, in Missouri, the primary is Tuesday. And in just a matter of moments, we're going to be talking about voting with the Secretary of State for Missouri, Jay Ashcroft, on Next Up, joining Ray Hartmann and me. So don't, under any circumstances, touch that dial.
Donnybrook is made possible by the support of the Betsy and Thomas Patterson Foundation and the members of 9PBS.